guys, this is Raj Sahu. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my video. This video is about something Paul says and it caught my attention. I thought I'll share it with you. It's evening time and I read a Bible in a year and I'm doing 2 or 3 readings in one go, so I get more good stuff. Anyway, here in the New Testament section, I'm on Corinthians. I don't like Paul one bit. I have put so many videos on his deceptive ways, his deceit, his diabolical ways of deceptions. This caught my attention and this will tickle you a little bit, hopefully. I'll read out for you, okay? In the closing section of a teaching on the nature of Christian freedom, 1 Corinthians 10:23, 11 to 1, in this section, the apostle, so-called apostle Paul, that I can't call him, but anyway, this Paul who came by his own proclamation, nobody saw his conversion, etc., etc. I put all those videos, I put 400 videos. All the acid against Paul is out, so I'm relaxed. It took 4 years. So the Apostle Paul issued this bold directive. This is from godquestions.org. Of course, Paulie is their Lord. And what does Paulie say? And you should imitate me, just as I imitate Christ. He says that 1 Corinthians 11 verse 1. You should imitate me just as I imitate Christ. He's asking people to, some say mimic, some of the versions, some say, but I'll go to the original Greek word as well. So, what Paul is saying is, I'll keep this short, guys. So what Paul is saying is, imitate me as I imitate Christ, in short. Question is, was he imitating Christ? We know we have to imitate you. And was he making a clone, wanting us to be a clone of Paul? Paul wanted us to be clones of him. Looks like that. He's saying he imitates, but we'll come to that later. Right now you imitate him, okay? He shouldn't be talking like this. Our Lord is Jesus, not this man who has no witnesses. Jesus has never uttered the word Paul. No apostle has ever called Paulie an apostle. And by the way, I'll tell you something, so we should be, it's very clear he wants us to be like him, right? Imitate me as I imitate Christ. We'll talk about you, Paulie, later, but this is for sure that we have to imitate you, become like you, right? Alright. In 1 Corinthians 4:16 also, he says the same thing, or he had said, and then he had said this. Therefore, I urge you to imitate me. So, he's not once, but twice he says, imitate me, okay? And the word imitate in 1 Corinthians 11:1 and 1 Corinthians 4:16 is, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, mimitai, M-I-M-E-T-A-I, and it means become a person who copies the words and behavior of another. Exact definition of a clone. So Paulie wants us to become like him and copy the words and behavior of Paulie, okay? And this is corresponds to the English word mimic loosely. After all, there is always difference in translations, word, but it closely. So he wants to be his clone, in my understanding. We have to be like Paul. Paul wants us to be like him. Paul chose the same verb to tell the Ephesians also the same thing. Alright, this is enough. Now, there are some good parts in mimicking Paulie, so we mimic Jesus. But was Paulie, like he says, as I mimic Jesus, but then Paulie, I call him Wile-E Paulie, by the way. I made a name for him. Wile, W-I-L-E-E. Paulie, Wile-E Paulie. This is from, of course, the great roadrunner Wile-E Coyote. I still love those. We were in India, and on some Sundays in a month in the club we used to go as children and with our parents, and they used to show us these cartoons, and we know Wile-E Paulie was the coyote who wanted to eat up the road runner. So I call Paulie Wiley Paulie. Now, guys, he's asking us to coming back to the story. He wants us to be his clone. Okay, we just, if you don't believe me, then you read these 1 Corinthians 11 verse 1, all 1 ones, and then that other 1 Corinthians 14:6 is it? I'll put this on the description section. I just read that out. So he wants us to mimic him, or he wants us to be his clone, because he says I imitate Jesus. But I'll just give you this one verse, not the other ones, but this one. Paulie says in 2 Corinthians 12:16, those are my favorite. That's my favorite verse of Paul. I love it. Thank you, Paul. I just thank you with my heart and soul for giving us this verse. It's my favorite. It is deeply entrenched in my heart. It says, the crafty fellow, be that as it may, the crafty fellow that I, Paul, am, I took you. He's talking to the church of Corinth, and that's the way he's saying, imitate me, the church of Corinth. So he's saying, be that as it may, the crafty fellow I, Paul, am, I took you in by deceit or deception. So in simple words, Paulie says, I'm so crafty, a crafty fellow that I, Paul, am, I trapped you by deception. So this is what he wants us to do. Paulie, do you want us to become crafty deceiver like you? Is that how you mimic Jesus? Is that how you clone Jesus? Like be a clone of Jesus? You're talking about mimicking. I don't like that word, imitate Jesus. Okay, it has been used, but you don't use it because we cannot be like you. We can be like Jesus. We can imitate Jesus. But I don't like you telling us to imitate you. So should we become, like you said in 2 Corinthians 12:16, become a crafty deceiver like you? With your own mouth you confessed. Nobody was putting a gun to your head, nothing. You were writing in your spare time or whatever time. You had all the time in the world to write. And then you write this. Okay? Like you held knife to people's throat and made them blaspheme God. Like you only said. This is not the case that is happening. You're writing to the church you established. You could have used better words. And don't ask us to become crafty deceivers like you said in 2 Corinthians 12:16. By the way, Paulie, you also said something very, very strange in Romans 3:7. Let me read that out. Paulie says in Romans 3:7, but if through my lie God's truth abounds to his glory, why am I still being condemned as a sinner? There you go, straightforward confession again by Paulie in Romans 3:7. In another place, he says, I robbed one church to give to the other. Mr. Robin Hood. Oh. Alright guys, these are the things we should we imitate. I want some of your thoughts on this. I love, by the way, how Paulians are the one who hold Jesus, Paul very high and put him in place of Jesus, you know. Paul is the man who replaced Jesus with the word grace. You're not saved by the Messiah, you are saved by a word called grace. A word Jesus never uttered in the Bible. So anyways, what do you think of this, guys? Do you want to be a clone of Paul? Wants you to imitate him as he claims he's imitating Jesus. And if he's imitating Jesus, then is that what he's talking about, our Lord, or what? Being a crafty deceiver, lying to increase the glory of God, robbing one church to give to the other. Jesus, to my knowledge, took nothing from anybody, and this man is telling us to imitate him, mimic him, be my clone, says Paulie. What do you think of this, guys? I found it hilarious, and that is why I'm sharing. I'm still laughing at how he twists words. He wants us to be his followers, his clones. What do you think of that, guys? Thank you for watching my video and have a wonderful, blessed day. God bless you all.